There was a story of a Breslover. His name was Rav Nachum Schuster, Nachum Strax. He was a shoemaker, a very, very simple man who lived in pre-World War I Poland. And he had found out about the Breslov movement because at that time, in the early 1900s, Breslov began to spread like wildfire in Poland due to the high influence of a few young men such as Rav Yitzchak Breiter, Rav Aaron Leib Ziegelman, Rav Yitzchak Otwotsker. These were special people, very special people. And it passed from person to person. And this Rav Nachum Schuster was very influenced. Even though he was very simple-minded, he didn't even know how to learn basic Torah text like a Mishnah, Chumash. It was very hard for him, even basics. He was a very simpleton. He worked for his living. He was a simple shoemaker. He, though, found out about this thing of traveling to be by Rabbi Nachman's grave across the border in the Ukraine, in the city of Uman for Rosh Hashanah. So he made the trip with the group, leaving from Poland by train, crossing the border. Again, this is before World War I, when the borders were still open. And while in Uman for Rosh Hashanah, he heard about the importance and the greatness of talking to Hashem at midnight. So when he came back home, and obviously people are very busy with the high holidays of Yom Kippur coming up and Sukkot, etc., but he immediately got involved in this devotion. He would get up every night at midnight and go to the local Beit Midrash, and he would sit in the women's section of the shul, of the Beit Midrash, and he would start reciting what's called Tikkun Chatzot, the Midnight Lament. He had no idea what he was saying, but he was told that you have to cry over the destruction of the temple, and he started saying the words in a crying voice, and he had no idea what he was saying, but he did it. He sat on the floor in like a mourning attitude, and he would begin crying over the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. So now, in that time, there were a group of highly learned men who were learning all day. That was their livelihood. They were learning. In other words, they were supported, and these were people who were exceedingly smart and great lamdanim, great Torah scholars. They would spend most of the day and even into the night learning Torah, with a few breaks obviously in between. They had family, they had wives, they had kids, and they would spend most of their day and into the night learning. So there would be times that they would just leave, like the winter nights where midnight is early. Midnight can go as much as up to 11, and sometimes in the Ukrainian and the European, North European countries, it can go even to 10:50, 10:40 p.m. to be already halachic midnight. So while they were about to leave, they saw how this Nachum Schuster, this Amaretz, the simpleton, would come in to recite the Tikkun Chatzot. And they started to crack up, because they said, this man doesn't even know the basics of Judaism, and he's getting up for midnight, which is known to be a devotion reserved for the elite, for the greatest tzaddikim. Who gets up at midnight to cry over the temple? Only great people do that, as we've seen. Only great tzaddikim who really concern them and it really touched their heart, the destruction of the temple. They get up at midnight. They have the ability, also the strength, to break their sleep. They're strong people, warriors of Torah, to go and get up. What's this guy, this simpleton, doesn't even know Aleph Bet, doesn't even know what's called in Yiddish the Taich, the translation of the Siddur and the Mishnah and everything. What's he doing doing this? So they were some of them were bothered by it, and it repeated itself. They know that another day would come that they stayed up till midnight learning, and they would leave, and he would come again, and they would listen to him screaming the words, and they can tell he had no idea what he was saying, but he was crying the words out loud, and they began to mock to themselves what he was doing. So two of them finally decided to approach him. The one whose name was Rav Mordechai Halberstam of Sokolov, and another person, I think his name was Rav Chaim Gavriel. Two learned men. They would approach him, and they told him, Rav Nachum, what are you doing? What are you doing getting up at midnight and crying over the temple? Go learn basics. Go take a course on learning how to learn Chumash, basic Bible, Mishnayot, like children do. What are you doing this work of getting up at midnight over the temple? This is reserved for tzaddikim, not for people like you. So he answered them like this. He said, like you guys said, I'm a simpleton. I don't know how to learn even. I can't even learn Chumash, the Bible. I can't even learn Mishnah. I have nothing. Nothing. I need the Beit HaMikdash. I need the temple. You guys are so lucky. You guys are so learned. You're able to learn the Talmud inside out of all the commentaries and to go into the Torah. You have Gan Eden. You guys are learning all day and into the night. You don't have to toil and struggle to earn a living like I do. You guys don't need the temple. You don't need the Beit HaMikdash. They heard what he said and they flipped out. It hit them like a lightning bolt. Wait a minute. What is he telling us? We don't need the temple? Wait a second. Do we really feel like that? Do we really feel comfortable in exile? Yes, we do. We do, more or less. If we feel comfortable in Galut, then there must be something wrong, because we missed the point. The point is we should constantly be in a state of yearning to reconnect to the Holy Temple, to the Holy Land, to the third temple, the coming of Mashiach. And if we're losing that, then maybe we've missed the point. We're making an error in our perspective in Judaism, which is why things look fine and dandy, when really my eyes are blinded. I don't have the right prescription on my eyes. They heard such sincere words coming from a simpleton, and that brought these two men also to discover the teachings of Breslov, of Rabbi Nachman. To teach you sometimes that a person can have sincere words and it can catch big fish. These two guys were technically big fish. They were big scholars, big giants of the Torah, and this simpleton was able to bring them a step closer. So you see this moral happening in life, that even a simple person with a simple fishing rod can catch big fish. And the idea is the sincerity of the heart when talking, when expressing, and when doing.